Dad Pod.
This is a video thing as well.
Have a name.
Podcast.
Midlife crisis.
Paddy Daddy.
Midlife crisis.
Dadcast.
That's not bad, actually.
Dadcast with Nivea Men. Try Ireland's #1 skincare brand.
All right, let's do this. Why are we doing this again, Adrian?
Well, we gathered the troops, we circled the wagons, we put the toothpaste back in the tube. What were the other? They turned a cannon, something in a canoe.
Can't fire a cannon from a canoe.
Yeah, there just seemed to be, there was a desire from the public, I think, Ger. Is that the official line? Is that what we're going with?
Public acclamation. Well, yeah. The dads are all here. Adrian's here, as I've just established. Hello.
Hello.
Nathan's here. How are you?
Hey, Ger.
And Dave is here.
I am. How are we doing?
All very good. It's fair to say, and we need to get this out there straight away, that there's a little bit of reticence on behalf of all of the parents of this podcast versus the first episodes of Dadcast, when our kids didn't have any access to anything, when they didn't know that we did this. Whereas now you can be absolutely certain that this is the type of thing that is going to land on their radar sooner rather than later, right?
Yes, it's a very different world we're living in. When did we start? What year was it when we first began? I certainly think I was the father of a 2-year-old anyway. So
I think it might have been 2017. I think I had only 2 kids.
Maybe 2016. Well, my eldest was born at the start of... No, you're right, 2017. You're right, 2017. Yeah, we get the dates right.
Here, listen, cut the crap, Ger, cut the crap. You mentioned it in the intro, getting the toothpaste back into the tube, I think, is a good way to start this, because for some people, the toothpaste ain't coming out of the tube the way it once did. That's what everyone wants to know straight off. They want the updates on how the toothpaste is coming out.
It comes out in exactly the same way. I think you obviously tuned out in the middle of our hour-long explanation of what exactly happens post.
No, I here. Listen, I'm Emma Byrne on repeat. I'm fully aware of exactly what happens. But I think since the last time we were on, there was a lot of people promising to do certain things. I'm just wondering, did anyone follow through?
Hey-o.
Did you the analogy? Yeah?
Is that me you're talking about?
There was this random message into our WhatsApp group. First time David had used it in a long time. Going, anybody around for coffee? I'll be in the city centre. It's like, that's unusual. What's that? And then weeks later, we realised that Dave was in having the snip.
Yeah, I was in Molesworth Street. Finally got the job done, lads.
Must have been a good experience if you're telling us where it happened.
I can't even remember where it was. Or sorry, when it was. When was it? Was it last year? Must have been last year.
Well, it was definitely last year.
Spring of last year, I think. So maybe coming up somewhere around the 1-year anniversary. Yeah, but I just felt all the talking had been done. It was time for action. And I finally did the deed. And, life is all the better for it. I certainly don't regret it. I certainly haven't changed my mind on wanting more children. So here we are.
I don't think I've ever met anybody as hardcore as you, Dave, that there was nothing standing in the way of you getting it done. I've never met anybody more insistent that they are absolutely not having any kids.
Well,
you have so much love for the current two, you just couldn't split it another way.
Well, that's it. Like, I'm not sure I have any more love to give. But also, I'm 43 years old now, and this time last year I was father of 7 and 5-year-olds. And I've seen friends of mine who were having children still and right back at square one, and they were delighted with it. But when I saw myself potentially in that situation, the thoughts of going back to day one was just something I couldn't stomach. As amazing as those days were at the time, and I would never want would-be fathers listening to us now to feel that I'm degrading those days, because they were unbelievable. It was fairy tale stuff, absolutely incredible. Never want to go back there, though.
They were unbelievable. They were so unbelievable. We made a podcast as like some kind of bitching circle about how difficult it was.
There were difficult days, obviously, and there are difficult days now that they're a little bit older, but they're just a different set of problems. But they, at least I mean, I met actually someone that we used to work with in Off the Ball. I won't name who it was, just in case he doesn't want his identity given. But I met him. I was doing a bit of shopping the other day, and he was there with his wife and their 2 very young children. So I'm thinking they were 2 and 6 months or 2 and 2 months, so along like those lines. And the amount of shit they had with them was just... There were bags and buggies full of bags and rucksacks on backs, and the undercarriage of the buggy was full of stuff. And I was remembering the days where it honestly took an hour to leave the house at any point. And I could never go back to that.
That's where we're at the minute. Do you mean it gets easier?
Well,
you would just put your shoes on, lads, and get the hell out of the house.
Well, I wish it was as easy as that. It's not.
See, Dave, you have a significant advantage here in that you have 2 and everybody else has 3.
Yeah.
And I do see a lot of people who have 2 kids around the same age as my 2 lads who are, what are they now, 11 and 9. And we have a 4-year-old who, we went for a walk up Killiney Hill on Monday, and dear God, we hadn't walked 10 meters and she was, oh, my legs are so tired. My legs, like, shut up. And they're obviously giving out about the fact they even had to leave the house. But the 3rd child just adds a wrinkle of everything's set back years you've a bit of freedom now. Like 7 and 6, they can do everything.
So that's exactly the point I'm making. Everything is set back to day one, to square one. Right back to where it all began.
The other thing is that when you have that 3rd child, it's like, it's not just, it's that there's 4 other people for that 3rd child to have a fight with. And then that just magnifies out. It's like a mushroom of potential conflicts. And so, I mean, it definitely gets easier. There's no doubt about it. The bits where you've got to pack everything up, and that to be somewhere for 11:30 basically means getting up at 8 o'clock. Otherwise, you're going to be late. Whereas mostly that's finished. Mostly you can get out. Now you're entering the difficult period where you have to convince people to do stuff, where you no longer can just pick them up and put them in the seat. And I was at a thing recently, and I was sitting beside a guy who was in his 50s. He has 2 grown-up kids who are both playing intercounty. Now they're away traveling at the moment, but obviously you'd think, okay, well, they've obviously done a very good job. And he was asking about what age my kids were. He's like, oh, that's the best time. It only gets harder after that. I was like, what do you mean? Like, teenage years are a disaster. I was like, but what? It's like, oh, and I couldn't go into it. I was too, I can't.
You're
I
too
don't
frightened.
want to know this. Well, I don't really want to know if it's worse. Like, is there like 1 week in the middle where it's not?
Does it not just totally depend on the kids though as well? Because like just what you were saying there, Ger, obviously about the youngest one. Our youngest one has been a unifying force, bizarrely. So like the elder 2 who will claw each other's eyes out to get an advantage over each other, perceived or otherwise, have suddenly so that hasn't stopped. That's very much still a thing. But they're united in their absolute love and care for the younger one, who's a dream child. I mean,
how young is the youngest?
1.
Right.
So I mean, he'll turn into a demon shortly. That's
at the moment he's incapable of fighting his own corner or having an opinion or stealing something or hitting back. So this is like, these are happy times. You should enjoy these.
Or even when he does it, it's just crack. It's like, it's just him. Nobody really cares enough about him to be competitive with him almost.
That will definitely change. Like
2001: Space Odyssey.
What are you doing to me here?
At the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey, the monkeys discover weapons. As soon as the children discover weapons, and they can use their toy car, which at the moment is cute, to bang the head or slash the eye of the brother or sister, then you're screwed.
It's the only thing we have to hang on to now. Could you please try to burst the bubble?
There is the bit as well, though, that the older 2, and we are the same, the arrival of the 3rd was a unifying force in that, the love they had for her and the crack they would get out of her. But also, I think bit by bit, they're starting to realize that, oh, wait a second, 3rd girl, us 2 boys, she seems to get away with absolute murder and can do whatever she wants and have whatever meltdown. And there's a calm and rationed response to her. And, parents are fine. It's like, okay, we'll deal with this. Whereas if they step out of line ever so slightly, the wrath descends upon them. And I think there's slowly but surely they're starting to look at her and go, not happy.
You ain't all that.
Not happy about this.
All right. Dadcast is in partnership with Nivea Men. Want to feel great in your skin? Nivea Men has you covered, from sensitive, tailored skincare to cleansing and anti-age. That's the bit that we're in there now, folks. Try Ireland's #1 men's skincare brand. We have had some correspondence that has been hanging over from previously. Unless there's any other specific questions you want to catch up on. Okay. Silence. I will take for a cent.
Have we wrung Dave's vasectomy dry?
He has many times.
Was it smooth? Because Ger wasn't a great advocate for it, I got to say.
Yeah, it was.
I'm an advocate for the outcome, not the process. And I was definitely not recommending the place that I went to. And I've never mentioned on air the place that I went to, although some people did piece it together from my description. They're like, was it that place? I was like, yeah. It's like, oh, a similar story. So yours is different, Dave.
Totally. I mean, I couldn't recommend the doctor in question and the facility in question highly enough, based purely on my own experience, which, from the canvassing of others who've gone through something similar, I was very much at the extreme where it went according to plan. I was in and out in 20 minutes. Yes, there was a little bit of pain in the aftermath, but I was already popping pills before I even walked into the place, and kept doing so for 2 or 3 days. So any significant pain was staved off the whole time. It's like taking a couple of Nurofen before you go to sleep after you've had a Reiki gargle on a Saturday night to kind of nip the headache in the bud before it even presents itself.
Now you're addicted to Oxy.
Yeah. And I do remember getting a knee in the nuts in the pool from one of the boys about 48 hours after it happened. And it was, there's something has gone on there, and there is a sense of delicacy that needs to be respected and protected. But within 4 or 5 days, it was all sorted. And then it's just the waiting game, and eventually you get the all clear, and you kind of put the whole thing behind you very quickly. So on my own experience, I'm willing to recommend it to anybody who's considering getting it done.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody's experience is the same.
Well, I think absolutely get it done. If you're on the fence at all, get it done. Just do your research on the place that you want to go to, and make sure that it has loads of up-to-date Google reviews that are done by people with local sounding addresses and names, and that know how to spell, as opposed to the closest one that happens to have it available.
Listened back 18 months ago, and who aren't going to listen back. What hints can you drop for them again, Ger, so that they go more just go to Molesworth Street, is what you're saying?
Well, again, there are many other places to go. I'd say you could go to Emmett. I'd say he'd be great. I didn't. I should have. I just kind of felt weird showing your Mickey to somebody you know. Was that not a... It was like,
out of the context of a vasectomy, I think that would be very weird.
Well, I guess some people quite enjoy that.
Has anybody been? It's a minor tangent. Has anybody been for like prostate checkups?
That's more than a minor tangent, I would have thought.
It just speaks to the same point about showing your hole to somebody who
a medical professional.
Who did you go to?
No, but I mean, you know what I'm saying. It's the same concept.
Like, tell us your story there.
Backstreet prostate
I haven't. I haven't, but I am going to. I'm 100% going to sometime soon, because we're in that. I'm in that. I think we're all in that space now, or getting there. But there definitely is that. Like, I've passing acknowledgement relationship with the GP. So there's that sort of. There is the same dynamic of getting your hole out or getting your Mickey out in front of somebody you know.
I guess in one instance, they're actually going to be forever changing your ability to procreate. In the other, they're just like giving you the all clear.
Hopefully. Yeah.
But also, I don't know. I have like a GP practice. I never know who I'm going to get when I go in, which I kind of like. That suits me, as opposed to developing a relationship.
On the prostate.
Well,
yeah, I would say that there is a difference between getting your hole out and getting your Mickey out as well. I'd say in law, you'd probably find yourself in a slightly different scenario. So, sorry, once again, you're suggesting, Adrian, that your fame, your Adrian Barryness is now too big with your GP, that you don't want him. In case he's talking at a dinner party on Saturday night going, I'd Adrian Barry in for a prostate, you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, well, you'd have to assume that that's not happening, of course, but it's just the same dynamic, isn't it? Like,
it is. But for the prostate, are you under sedation?
Oh, no. No.
How did we end up on prostate exams? Jeez.
I think they do a blood test, and I think they
You've done your research on this.
Put your finger down, Adrian. Put your finger down.
I think that's what happens.
Okay. I didn't think that we were all
go get it done, is my advice.
I have a question before we move on.
Get it done. I didn't think we were all going to get fired for this, but it turns out we might.
But for both of our vasectomy colleagues, the first time you go at it, so we one of the things, did we touch on at the top that we're sort of slightly, we don't want to be too giving, so take the question as it is and deal with it as you will. The first time you went at it afterwards, how was that? I mean, in terms philosophically, was it like a swinging from the rafters, kind of like freedom, or?
Well, I don't think the way you do it, Adrian, increases the chances of getting pregnant or not beforehand. Well,
I just mean that, like, the joy of knowing that you're not going to. Did that increase the freedom of expression?
The look on McIntyre's face says it all.
You're right. I don't want to be too giving. I'll leave that one to Ger.
It looks like Ger might, though. So,
what a weird question, Adrian. I think this says a lot about you, buddy. Why would anything change? Why would anything change? So they do recommend. So Dave said you wait for the all clear. The all clear is like after a certain amount of time or after a certain amount of usage, and then you do a test. And the test comes back negative or positive for whether or not you're still capable of, whether or not there's enough little fishies to fertilize the egg, if they're going to be brutal about it. But like philosophically, you've made the decision a long time ago. So, I like to think you've got enough practice in advance.
You seem to be suggesting, Adrian, that and you're now the one who's obviously giving more than the other two lads here, that pre-vasectomy you're restricted. You are restricted. You're enjoying the moment, but part of you is thinking this would be great, but I'm not letting loose fully in case
I get pregnant.
Yeah, you're not really.
You may as well go out swinging.
You're not really. There might be a point in proceedings where you're thinking that, but obviously there arrives a point where that's not a factor. But I do appreciate the sentiment. I think that's fair.
Other contraception is available.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Not being too giving was the. So some leftover correspondence from our last episode, and if anybody wants to send us correspondence, how are they going to send us? Dadcast@offtheball.com. Is that what we want?
Because somebody have access to that?
Yeah, and I think you can leave a comment on the reviews on Apple Podcasts if you want to. Yeah. That would be good, and it'll really help us get better guests if you like and review the podcast. My 10-year-old has become a teenager 3 years too early, says Cian from Youre. Went to wake her up last weekend to be greeted by "fuck off, asshole." Is that it for the next 8 years, or any ideas on how we can all cohabit and survive? Help. Welcome back.
This is one of the scenarios that I do worry about coming down the track. I'd heard of a mother whose daughter just won't get up and go to school. And what do you do? Like, you can't just pick them up out of the bed. Like, I'm still able to say, right, well, look, I'll give you 5 seconds to get up and leave the house, or I will carry you out to the car. But eventually, when like your son is 6 foot tall and 14 stone, that's going to wash anymore. What do you do when it's a firm no, and there's no budging, and really probably your only weapons are finance related, internet access related, but you don't want to be in that sphere as well where you're throwing threats around the place, and it's just that sense of helplessness where they're looking in the eye and saying, F off, I'm done with you. I'm not going there. I'm not doing that today. Leave me alone. Get out of the room. What is your recourse then?
Well, it turns out that anger and shouting doesn't really seem to work that well. Making the situation worse by responding in kind is yet to affect a successful outcome, as far as I can see.
Well, that's for kids of all age groups, really, isn't it? That I found, if you lose your temper, they get more riled up, so it's pointless. But
I think one of the things is, and myself and Ger are probably heading towards that direction quicker than the two of ye. In that, I think we both have maybe 11-year-olds. I've heard a lot of stories like that as well, Dave, of, people's kids just decide I'm not going to school or are making big life decisions when they hit sort of 13, 14. And I think you just need to hear more and more of those stories that actually everyone is going through some sort of shit, that there's going to be a lot of very difficult days with teenagers, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world or the end of their world or somehow not catastrophizing at all. Now, it's easy to say when that hasn't happened as of yet, and you're not the one and your kid hasn't gone to school for 2 weeks and is refusing to get out of bed. As to how I would deal with that, considering I've dealt with everything else that they've thrown at me so well so far, without getting angry. Their refusal to turn off their computer within 5 minutes of me saying it is usually met with a reasoned response that I'm not going to school for 2 weeks. I'm sure I'll go, actually, this is fine. You're just going through some stuff and I'm going to bear with you here and not lose the ride completely.
Isn't it funny how it's one of the few situations in life that the more experience you get, it seems like the shitter you get at it. I definitely am not getting any better at this.
Yeah, but the goalposts keep moving, though. You're not dealing with the same objects.
Well, we're dealing with, like, we're at different ends of the scale. If there's 10 years almost between kids here of, like, Adrian, for a 1-year-old, it's still a physical battle. Like, it's a lack of sleep. It's a getting them dressed. You have to do absolutely everything for them. Like, we're now entering a psychological battle with these teenagers that we are not equipped for and that we don't know what is going down the track at all. Like, I can't get my head around that in 2 years, 3 years, my 11-year-old son, who's just like the most calmest, down-to-earth, nicest young kid you would meet, is going to turn into a terror. I can't project to see that happening. And there's no way he's going to be an outlier and just not become that he's going to stay that way once puberty properly hits. God, it's depressing. This used to be an uplifting podcast.
Do we not, well, speaking of that, do we not, like, the parents not give themselves enough credit for the work they've done? Like, on the point about your sort of, you should be becoming, like, after 10 years of being a parent, 10 years of anything, you should be considered, to become a crafts person, you spend 5 years being an apprentice and then 5 years on your own, and then you're considered a master of this craft. If you were a glass cutter, you'd be a master of the craft after 10 years. I mean, Dave's point is not irrelevant in the conversation in that the product changes as you move. But do we not just give ourselves enough credit at times to say, actually, by and large, not doing too badly?
We might have failed the certification exams at the craftsman stage, if there were any.
Yeah, but of course you learned, Ger, from child 1 to child 2. I'm sure there were mistakes you made with your eldest that you didn't then make with your second child.
You think so?
But is that not the problem? So you're right. I would absolutely agree. Like, and you can see it reflected in the kids' personalities that, the pressure that was put on the first child compared to the third child who gets no attention and is happily able to play by herself for an hour and just go about her business. Whereas the first kids, it's constant because it was constant, the parenting when they were growing up. They're now the first kid for the teenage stuff as well.
Yeah.
So we're also going to screw up that part with the first kid. So they're just constantly screwed up.
Yeah. They fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. Hi, dads. Love the pod and welcome back. Sorry, I thought these were all left over, but they're obviously as a result of your tweets. Announcing our comeback.
By the way, Ger, our friend in Youre got absolutely no advice there from us. Absolutely nothing constructive.
We're not in a position.
No, we're saying you're doing well. And look, I'm not in any position to talk about direction, but you're doing well. Keep at it. Don't catastrophize it. Everything passes. I think I mentioned that before. Somebody gave me that bit of advice. Awesome advice.
Check out boarding schools, Cian. Must be someone that's like a couple of hours away. 2 hours away is far enough so that they're not going to run home. Hi, dads. Love the pod and welcome back. Hope you're still as relatable after the break. My 6-year-old enjoys her soccer training, but flat out refuses to take part in flush the toilet and stuck in the mud. She seems to have some kind of competition anxiety and freaks out with the idea of losing. I want to encourage her, but don't want to leave her with a lifelong phobia of sport, says Dec in Crumlin.
I think Dec is catastrophizing it, as Adrian put it there. He's kind of worried about something that isn't going to really be a problem for quite a while. All you want your kids at that age to be willing to do is show a little bit of enthusiasm and energy and willingness to actually go to wherever this training session is on in the first place. what happens during the training section at such a young age is largely irrelevant. If there's one or two aspects that she doesn't want to participate in, just leave her be. She'll change her tune when she sees all of her mates enjoying themselves in those two drills. And eventually she'll turn and want to get involved. None of the kids like losing. Like, even now, my 8-year-old is playing GA on a Saturday and soccer on a Sunday, and both are taken unbelievably seriously by the children involved, but there's no scorekeeping. So when they ask what the score is at halftime, I just shrug my shoulders and go, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. But it would be surprising that they actually ask you what the score is, because more often than not, they do know. And they're well able to quote the full-time score to you afterwards. And if they lose 10-0 on a Sunday morning to a really crack shot soccer team, they'll be able to tell you that they lost 10-0. But they do get less moody, I find, after a defeat than maybe they did when they were 6 or 7. So if she's unable to take defeat or competition or losing now, I think that will get better. Now, some might say, well, isn't that loser talk? And you show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. I don't think we should attach that to children of that age.
No.
So eventually it'll get easier.
That's the name of your WhatsApp group, is it?
Yeah. So I think I understand his concern, because you want your daughter to be involved in every aspect of the training and to enjoy it. But if there's the fact that she's willing to go there and seems to be enjoying the rest of it, I think he should have his mind put at ease. There's no big deal here. There's no issue.
Anybody, anything else on that?
What's any thoughts on, like, so obviously my eldest is 6 and he's sort of like, all the mates are playing, he's playing the different sports and all that sort of stuff, and like he's granted them and interested in all that sort of stuff. But like, obviously at some point, and Nathan, Ger particularly, probably been through some of this, like, obviously the team start to get streamed, mates will go one direction, he might go a different direction. Any thoughts or advice on how to manage, like, any expectation on their part of, you know, like, I mean, his mindset at the minute is, oh, I could play Liverpool and I'd beat them on my own. I know this is like not something that continues to exist the older they get, but just on that bit of, like, mates and stuff progressing at a certain level, and then maybe other kids not been quite up to that, been interested but just not up to that level.
I think we should do a full podcast on this at some stage, because I think it is something we will get a huge response to, because it's so difficult, and the pressure that is put on underage sport. I think we should do something on parents coaching their own kids as well, which is something that I am doing, and the stress of that, and noticing everything that your child does and probably being extra harsh on them. The streaming thing is very, very difficult, particularly if they end up split up by their mates. If it's a good club, they should have a way that they're still going to the matches with their friends, that they're still around their friends at training, that even if, so for example, at our club, it's streamed into A, B, and C for GEA, but we'd make sure that the friends are all still in that group. So we've 2 groups. So say 30 kids will go to one venue, 30 kids will go to another, but we'll make sure all the friends are still going to the same venue, and then they'll be split during the game, possibly. And I'm sure there's some kids who don't take that well. Generally, the feedback has been very, very positive towards that, as long as, again, the friends are traveling with each other and around each other for the warm-up and around each other for after the game, and if they're going for hot chocolate or going for something, that fun part of it is important. But like, it is very, and it seems to be getting younger and younger, that streaming is happening depending on the sport, that I guess you have to try and somehow not attach that much importance to being on the A team, being one of those guys that takes to it a bit more naturally. And look, then you're into all sorts of complicated things that we've probably covered on Off the Ball a bit, about different players, different kids mature at different ages, and the kid who may not be making the A team at under 10 could well be the captain of the A team by under 16. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's so hard not to stress about it and overthink it and get pissed off if your kid isn't being picked for an A team when they just desperately want to be on it. Other mates are on it.
Yeah. Well, let's do a full pod. Let's get somebody who knows what they're talking about that. Like, I think the relative age thing as well should be factored in. underage level in a way. So you're playing with people and training with people of similar standards. Anyway, that all starts to get a bit. Personally, really don't want them to be that keen on trying to be elite. I want them to like have a five-a-side game in their 20s and 30s, and maybe play a bit of golf or tennis, and hopefully they cycle and swim and run, and have a healthy attitude towards this, as opposed to using it as some kind of, this is a vehicle for my career because I learned how to be a leader. And now here's my 25 tweet thread. And you're like, fuck off. Just be a human being. You know?
The streaming thing it's a well-worn debate, but what we have seen is that once they get to the age of 7 or 8, if you are putting the less developed kids in terms of technique and skill level into training sessions and matches with kids who of a vastly superior level, they just get destroyed and swamped, don't get a touch, self-belief evaporates, and then eventually they just no longer want to turn up. And so that's the reason that certainly in our GA sessions in this year, we have the matches will be streamed, whereas before we just streamed our training sessions, and the players in each team on a Saturday against a rival club would have been, 2 or 3 from each of our categories of top players, medium to better players, developing players. But we are hoping now that over the next few months, we will see some of the kids from the lower groups really starting to find their feet, really starting to express themselves, really starting to have a little more belief in themselves, because they're playing a match and they're getting to kick scores and they're actually getting 10 possessions in a game as opposed to accidentally getting one during the game.
Well, the training recommendations, and look, I'm saying this as someone who doesn't coach, the small-sided games like 3-on-3 at training in those groups gives everybody opportunity on the ball and opportunity to practice their skills. So there's ways around. There's definitely, I think that there in previous years, there would have been, in previous generations, there would have been a culture of, you can't, if you're not showing any signs of progress, we don't really want you around because you're a thief on our time and our effort. We could be spending this time with the good lads. But I actually was talking to Michael Murphy about this recently, and he was saying that that relative age thing is massively important, because if you're the big lad and you can dominate games, taking the ball from the keeper, running the length of the field, scoring goals, no one ever teaches you how to do a dummy solo or how to be good on your other side. And as soon as you get up to senior level, they swallow you up because you haven't had to work on your skills. So it cuts both ways. Dadcast, where have you been? Welcome back, you relatable bastards. I've been retelling Dave's, or was it Ger's, story of the black bag full of toys, and I've had many laughs as new audiences discover the wildness of it. Neither me or the dads I've told have been brave enough to try it, but the questions tend to circle around 2 areas. Did it work, and how many times can you go back to it?
Do you want to recount for anybody who hasn't heard the black bag story?
Was it me? I think it was me. Was it Ger?
I can't remember which one you.
I thought Ger was the black bag, was he not? And Dave was the throwing the scooter over the wall.
No, I've definitely packed the black bag full of toys on more than one occasion.
Yeah. I don't know who started it, but I'd be happy for you to take the responsibility for starting it if that was the case, Dave. But I would look back on that now as a complete disaster. Like, obviously, I've just totally lost the head and unable to deal with something like it's, chronically bad idea, I would say, of no long-term benefit other than that you've traumatized your child. Like, how
there are only short-term benefits, immediate-term benefits, in that you might spook them enough to get for their levels of behavior that have obviously driven you mentally to this place. They might improve for 24, 48, 72 hours, but as a long-term approach, it does not work, because it's forgotten. Once you've done it once, it's like a manager reading his players the Riot Act. You can't do it at halftime every time they're a goal or 2 down and you're displeased with their performance levels. And I never actually got rid of any of the toys. They were in a bag in the car. And then once their behavior improved, I slowly reintroduce said toys on a item by item basis. But I wouldn't recommend, unless you're just left with no alternative. But we would have done it, Ger, because we felt we were being left with no alternative.
I know, but we'd obviously clearly lost the run of ourselves. I think it's not the manager reading the Riot Act, though. It's Phil Brown getting them to sit down on the field at half time. It's like completely off the reservation levels of like, this doesn't make any. In retrospect, I think I'd love to be able to tap myself on the shoulder and go outside for a walk for 20 minutes. then come back and go, what was the problem that got us here in the first place? But I still don't have that foresight when it comes to this. So I would definitely not recommend it. Really, like, you're much better learning coping mechanisms than learning this type of stuff from us. If I could give you one bit of advice, don't do as we say. Don't do as we do either.
When they get the toys back and then they're giving it the whole Paul McShane celebration afterwards, they're like,
the toys back is the problem. Is that, like, all your kids have too much crap. Yeah. All kids today all have too much crap from the second that they're overstimulated with the deluge of presents that people get you. Yeah. And then this never stops. Everybody always buys too much, particularly early on in kids' lives. And, like, sure, we do it the same. But they have, like, every year around October, November, there would be black bags of toys being taken out and recycled to the charity shops. But sure, they barely notice. And it's just making space for the next load of crap that comes through. So I don't actually know what the answer is.
But the black bag situation wasn't spur of the moment thing. Like, I would have been threatening this for days before I did it.
But you had the bag ready.
Yeah, it's not like the scooter over the fence episode. Like, that was just red mist descends in one moment. This was, I would have said, right, the next time this happens, look at me. So you understand the words I'm saying to you. If this happens again, I'm going in and I'm picking your 3 favorite toys each and getting rid of them. And then you might follow through it on the first time, but the second time you might. So it's not like completely and utterly losing your temper because you've just broken. It's different to that. It's more premeditated.
Find with the look at me. They are looking at you, but in their heads is like
this guy talks an awful lot, doesn't he? This guy is always.
I still do that now because they're old enough to understand everything that I say. So when I say to them, like, I'm going to give you a little bit of leeway, and this is what I expect to happen when the allotted time for whatever activity you're doing is over. You're going to say, no problem, and you're going to hand me back the screen or whatever it is. But if you don't, now look at me, just so you both understand exactly what's going to happen, and you can't turn around and start wailing and say that you weren't warned in advance. This is what is going to happen. Now, is there anything I've just said that either of you don't understand? And if they both say, yeah, we totally understand, well, there you go. That's their bed. That's their bed they've made. The other day, I said, right, lads, 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, they both just switched off their screens and brought them over to me. And honest to God, I had to get the thermometer out to make sure that they didn't have a temperature. And I was very close to putting them in the back of the car and bringing them down to A&E because I just thought there's something majorly wrong with these 2 kids.
COVID test.
It's a wonderful moment.
The problem I find now is they get a bit older with the 5 minutes. So again, the fucking 5 minutes. If I have to say 5 minutes again, it's, we just started the game, but we just started. Okay, end of that game. And then it's, how long is this game going on for? If I was to take the Xbox off them, what are they going to do? Doesn't involve wrecking my head. Like, they know that instantly. It's incredible how they have 2 things inside: are sitting enjoying their screen time, or all out, how can I wreck your head?
Can I ask a question? Slightly, and I don't want to deter our inevitable push to possibly another.
You're not going back to the prostate exam, are you?
No, I'm not. Just it's on that point of, like, constantly asking. So, like, I would say safely, and this is not exaggerated. I would say safely every morning I have to ask the kids, one or other, the eldest 2, possibly 50 times to eat their breakfast. So, like, I might get 1 spoon for every 5 times I ask. What am I better off just not? Am I better off just leaving them and let them get on with it, or do I need to continue that?
Are you giving them a big snack before bed?
It's not that they're not hungry. One of them would sit down and, like, munch their way through a full pot of porridge if it was put in front of them, and then the other one, it's not that they're not hungry. Definitely, like, if I was to sit down and help with, I could, spoon. If I was to do that, no, this child is too old to be spoon fed.
You're asking, is spoon feeding good?
Pretty much. That's what it boils down to.
Someone should tell me spoon feeding is good and being teenager is easy, and I'll go away happy today.
What do I do though? Do I just what do I do?
Nothing. What can you do? What can you do?
Do I stop saying eat your breakfast?
No, I don't. There's no need to stop saying it, because if every time 5 times you say it, you might get one bite out of it. Look, at least you just don't want them going out the door in the morning with nothing in their stomach. I don't worry about that too much, but I will still spoon feed a 6-year-old. Like if he's in the middle of something, I'll just throw a mouthful into his gob, and if I know I've done that 6 times, well, he's going out with something.
But going out hungry once or twice might not be the worst thing that ever happens, because it'll learn you pretty quick to eat your bloody breakfast before you go, won't it? Is there not a part of this where it's like, oh, I was really hungry all day yesterday. Why were you really hungry? Because you didn't eat your breakfast. What if I had my breakfast? Oh, like, is there not some part of this that is actually learning for themselves? Like, I don't know. Personally, I find that the constant repetition only ratchets up the tension. And like, loads of good stuff happens when everybody's tense, right? That's where all the good stuff happens.
Yeah, that's the balance that's so hard to get, in that the negatives are probably outweighing the positives of you saying it. So you're winding yourself up constantly by talking about it. And what is the positive of you saying it all the time? They have one more spoonful? Like,
it's not always tense, by the way. I mean, it can be. It totally can be.
But it gets there, right?
Yeah, it does.
Like, sorry, it doesn't always get there. But like, do the thing. Why are you not doing the fucking thing? What? Can you not see me? Do I not exist? You know, it's like, that's the pathway to, I don't know. Like, I'd love to know if those kind of, we'll make a list and everybody will be ticking those off along we go. And that never works for us. Those kind of like, oh, here's an apparatus and a structure that you can use. It's applicable to you. It's like, it didn't work. Maybe because we weren't committed enough to the bits or the rewards charts. Like, again, life is full of rewards anyway, so I don't know.
Well, parenting is great, folks. Enjoy it. Life is short. Something.
And we're on the back 9 now. Dadcast is in partnership with Nivea Men. Want to feel great in your skin? Nivea Men has you covered, from sensitive, tailored skincare to cleansing and anti-age. Try Ireland's #1 men's skincare brand.
We must thank Nivea. I mean, they are responsible for us sitting around the table here, virtually.
We're getting the band back together.
Yeah.
Are we going to do Electric Picnic again? I mean, you know, are we too old for that stuff?
No. I find them.
I think we peaked at Electric Picnic last year.
I agree.
Yeah. Myself and Adrian at Electric Picnic last year found the greatest bar that there has ever been. Met some beautiful people. Here's how old we are. We spent a good hour in the company of 2 people from Monaghan, and it wasn't until about 55th minute into it that we realized they were totally stoned off their head. These people are very strange.
They also had the same name, if I remember rightly. Don't say their names, but
don't say their names.
Now that you've said that,
we're definitely doing Electric Picnic if we get the chance.
All right, well, we'll stick it on the list. All right, dadcast at offtheball.com. Leave your comments and requests for whatever in the Apple podcast review section, or you can just email us. All right, we're all still on Twitter, right? We are still on Twitter,
aren't we? Yeah.
Can't get the password. That password doesn't work, but outside of that, yeah, we're
at Dadcast Pod. There you go. We might not answer, but we see everything. We're like Big Brother. All right, see you next week. Cheers, folks.